Yo, 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 welcome to another episode of In the Pocket Podcast. I am your host, SOU to the P, joined as always by my good brother on this victory. Well, it's Tuesday for us, but Victory Monday. Mike Williams, what's going on?
Hey, man, you said it. I was just basking in the ugly victory, but ugly victory is still a victory. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, you know what? It turns out they count the same. They don't award extra points for style. Leave that for the guys at EA and the Madden ratings for the upcoming game. But man, week 6, and for a lot of teams, it feels like the season's over already. And you know what's cool about this year, Mike, is I don't have a clear favorite this year. Like, I don't think that there has been a team that has come out and emerged from either division and said, hey, we are the class of this division. I definitely think there's teams vying for that title right now, but I don't think you can definitively like point a finger at one team in the NFL and say, hey, this is the class of the division, because it looks like it's anybody's game. I love the parity that's happening this season.
Yeah, no, this has been the most parity that I remember in the NFL in quite some time. Like, I really don't know the last time I remember this. And again, you have teams that playoff experience comes into play as the season goes on. You got a couple surprise teams like the Bucks that look, great, like they're building off of what they had last year, even with no receivers. But like the Eagles coming back as a Super Bowl champions, the Chiefs that made it to the Super Bowl, both of them have had their struggles as this year's gone on. And it's given some other teams opportunities to rise to the occasion. So it's been a phenomenal season.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, it's stressful. You guys see the hat. The Rams continue to take years off of my life because this offense can't get moving. But like Mike said, an ugly win, still a win. It all counts the same. But man, I want to start it off here. Brian Callahan. He's out. He's gone. No longer in Tennessee. To the relief of many a Titans fan. It seems like that particular brand of nightmare is over. And I think if you're the Titans, you had to make this move this week, because with the upcoming matchup of the return of Mike Vrabel, right, Patriots at Tennessee, you couldn't have the Patriots come in there, potentially kick their tail all over the place, and then fire your coach, because then it makes it look like, hey, your ex-coach got your new coach fired. And like the optics of it are terrible. Not that I think that Brian Callahan could have any worse optics than what he's doing. I think he's also committed a cardinal sin as a head coach, right? Where you get a number 1 overall draft pick at quarterback, somebody that I think universally analysts and I guess people with eyeballs just agree, right, can play the game of football, or should at least be able to play the game of football. And I think by some, I don't know what you want to call it, it's not a miracle, by some tragedy, right? Brian Callahan has managed to make Cam Ward look completely inept. And it's not going to be all on Brian Callahan, right? Like, there's a number of things that go into making a quarterback look inept. But the fact that the combination of him and their general manager has not constructed a team, has not constructed an environment that is conducive to what Cam Ward was good at in college. He refuses to bend his game plan to what Cam Ward is good at. He refuses to, they refuse to invest in the offensive line. And I mean, some people argue, well, they made investments in this offseason. Name those investments for me, please. Tell me. Are they household names? Because they're not. Those are people that only the Tennessee Titans fans know. And from what I'm hearing in Titans land, you guys weren't a big fan of those signings either. So, Mike, what's your take on Callahan? Is it too soon? Do you think they made the right move? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm generally speaking, man, a fan of giving the coach a little bit of time, right? Giving them 2-3 years to get his program fully implemented, especially coming off of a year where they just had a number 1 overall pick. Their roster is extremely void of talent. That started when Mike Vrabel was there, and he was making chicken salad out of shit. Really, they sent off AJ Brown and drafted Treylon Burks, who is a free agent right now. That move clearly didn't pan out, right? Like they started getting rid of talent at that time, and they haven't really been able to recover. Now the difference is not just the offense and some of the personnel, which I believe like there's a general manager conversation that needs to be a part of this, and I think maybe the general manager's like, hey, let's get him out of there. Maybe I can say my job. The general manager made that hire. The general manager brought in this personnel. It's some of Brian Callahan's game management, right? Like the before halftime, that was inexcusable, right? He's had a few moments like that, saying he doesn't know certain rules as a head coach. And again, it's hard to memorize a book this thick, right? And there's little intricacies of that that somebody has to do. Like Bill Belichick is known for that. Mike Vrabel is known for that, right? You got a few coaches that are known for those details, but at the same time, be vocalizing that and losing your locker room essentially, like it had to come down to losing the voice in your locker room. And they don't have a ton of vets. They have Jeffrey Simmons, right? They have guys like that, but they don't have a ton of vets with the amount of new people, the amount of youth they have to kind of police and guide some of that, or like you're walking into a culture, right? Like Sean Payton, as an example, when he was with the Saints, you walk into that Saints locker room, and there's a culture that was established, right? Bill Belichick, no matter how people felt about him, there was a culture there. Mike Tomlin, he has a culture there, right? Harbaugh's been able to build a culture, in Baltimore and in LA, right? You kind of know what you're expecting. Like they really didn't have an identity, right? That's a team that you expect to line up, run the ball well, play good defense. And you look at where Callahan came from. That style of offense needs to have a good defense with it, right? That style of offense needs some personnel. So I understand it. I'm generally a fan of it, but it had to be something bigger. And when you got people on your team talking about the things that they're talking about, I'm not saying it's as bad as what's going on with the Dolphins necessarily, but when you got some of that stuff coming out, as well as those coaching gaffes, as well as a Mike Vrabel revenge game coming up, I think it all makes sense. And that's going to be a very, very attractive job because they have cap room, they have Cam Ward, they have Jeffrey Simmons. That'll be a job that a coach, established coach, can kind of come in and help guide them to, building a playoff worthy roster. So,
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, right? An established coach. I don't think that the Tennessee Titans job is a job for a first-time head coach. This needs to be somebody who's been proven to be able to take, like you said, chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad, right? Like, because they don't have a lot to work with in terms of talent on the roster right now. And even if you were to start, let's say, moving some pieces, there's only so many people that they can move at the deadline. Like this roster doesn't have anybody they can really afford to give up, you know? And even if you say, oh, well, hey, there's a bunch of people that would take a Jeffrey Simmons. Well, let's look at Jeffrey Simmons' contract, right? And then see who wants to take that on. And this guy is at the end of his career. And this is no shade to Jeffrey Simmons. I think he's playing phenomenally, consider what's happening over there. But then you also have like big contracts like L'Jarius Sneed, who just got a big payday to go over there, and he hasn't really lived up to the billing. So it's like, how many people want to take on these big contracts for these names that are either at the end of their career or not living up to the payday that they earned respectively elsewhere? Who else wants to take a risk on that and jump out there? Like you don't really have a lot of things to trade and acquire more draft picks and stuff. I think this is going to be a project that's going to take another 2 to 3 years for them to really start trending in the right direction. But it has to start with the front office. You've got to get the offensive line correct. You've got to get at least 1 to 2 reliable weapons. A solid run game would help Cam Ward immensely right now. And you have to salvage this quarterback that you got in Cam Ward. You cannot destroy him. And that's what they were running the risk of, I think, with keeping Brian Callahan there, right? Like they were running the risk of ruining this guy's career earlier. And we've seen it. We've started to see a trend over the last few years, right? Where these quarterbacks that we had kind of just written off as, hey, careers is over and done with. They've last couple of years have had a resurgence, right? Starting with Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay, right? Cycled from the Browns to the Panthers. Then he had a quick stint with the Rams. The Buccaneers give him a shot. Now he's looking like the MVP of the league early. And then, Sam Darnold last year with the Vikings after cycling through the Jets, through the Panthers, and then he went to the 49ers, right? And now he got a chance to start with the Vikings, and now he's playing for the Seattle Seahawks this year, and he's doing extremely well. Daniel Jones, we know his story, right? Shouldn't have been taken in the first round, but for some reason they took him in the first round. They paid him in New York, decided, hey, this wasn't it. Let him loose. He spent the back half of the season with Kevin O'Connell, and with the Vikings last year. Now he's a starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, who, by the way, happened to be number one in the AFC South.
Looks like an MVP candidate as well, man. Honestly,
right?
Top quarterback this year.
That's what I'm saying. He's playing his best ball. So I don't think if you're Tennessee, you don't want to sign up to have the next reclamation quarterback story, right? Like, you don't want it to be your guy that you spent high draft capital on in the first round. It doesn't work in your system because you guys can't get the front office, can't get the head coach right, you can't get the team right around him, and then only for 3-4 years down the line, him to end up with somebody that's competent, and now you're seeing what he can do, what we all knew or thought he could do, projected coming out. So, go ahead, man.
A coach that I would keep an eye. I mean, there's plenty of time. It's only week 6, but I think Mike McCarthy would be a perfect for this job. This looks like a real good Mike McCarthy job. We've seen what he's done with quarterbacks. He's had Aaron Rodgers. Right? He's done some stuff with Dak. Cam Ward would arguably be the most all-around talented quarterback, right? Like Aaron Rodgers' arm talent, some of the best in NFL history, but Cam's mobility, moving the pocket, accuracy with weapons, etc. Like, that could be a perfect guy that's established Super Bowl winning coach that can kind of bring something there, and he wouldn't have the restraints of a Jerry Jones in his way like he did in Dallas.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Mike McCarthy, because when I'm thinking about openings for that role, man, that's exactly the name that's at the top of my list was a Mike McCarthy. And here's the thing: I'm not like a huge Mike McCarthy fan, but I think he's offensive minded enough. I don't think what Tennessee needs is another defensive head coach, and that's no offense to like the Brian Flores's and DeMeco Ryans and all these other people out here, right? That have defensive head coaches that are making it work. Sean McDermott, but I like the idea of Mike McCarthy, he's been there, done that, right? He's been to the high as a high. He's had some low lows, but he knows how to steady the ship, and he's not a guy that's really going to rock the boat, but he is going to instill something steady. I think another candidate to look for, and I know I just said, hey, I don't want any first-time head coaches here, but if you had to absolutely go first-time head coach here, I think a candidate that I would absolutely look at would be Joe Brady, offensive coordinator for the Bills right now, because this is one of those things where we get to find out, right? Hey, is he a good coordinator, or is Josh Allen just otherworldly? And here's the thing: Josh Allen is otherworldly, right? Like, let's be very, very clear about it. Josh Allen is otherworldly, but I would like to see Joe Brady get a turn at a head coach position, and maybe Tennessee isn't the right spot for that, but I think that is a name that we should be looking forward in this next cycle as we continue, to see coaches fall off during the year. I want to stay on topic, though, or stay on theme, right? Where we started at the top of the show with a guy that actually got fired. Like, Mike, give me some names of who you think are some coaches that should be concerned.
The biggest one that sticks out to me is Mike McDaniels down with the Dolphins, right? They've had a lot of issues, and the fact that Tua's coming out talking about things that the public did not know about, guys being late to players-only meetings, et cetera. And that team has vets. They've had vets. They should have their culture in there by now, et cetera. And again, I'm a Mike McDaniels fan. I think he's a brilliant offensive play caller. I think he manages the team overall pretty well, but he just hasn't been the right voice for the guys they have in that locker room. Like, again, I could see him going somewhere else, building a tough team, or going back and being an old coordinator for a year or two. Learning and growing and being a good head coach, second time around. But that's the number one that sticks out to me. I could also see potentially a Pete Carroll, right? Like, they brought in Chip Kelly, and it felt like Chip Kelly's more like yes, he's their offensive coordinator, but it seems like he's more of a head coach in the waiting, right? In the wings, right? And Pete Carroll, again, they had a lot of, I didn't understand why people were like, the Raiders are going to make the playoffs or this and that. They lack talent massively, and bringing in Geno back with Pete Carroll. Again, that's one of the reasons Pete Carroll got to the point where Seattle wanted to get rid of him, but he wanted to bring him back in. They have a lot of work to do as well. And again, they got some guys out of there. But I mean, if you're a guy like a Max Crosby, how many seasons are you going to go? Again, he loves Oakland, of course, or Las Vegas, of course. But like, how many seasons can you be that great and not be competitive, right? So I could see a potential for like a Raiders with him because they have an in-house replacement in my mind, right? Chip Kelly, and I guarantee he had to learn from his first his time with the Eagles, going around being a head coach, right? So those are two that stick off the top of my head. You could potentially throw two-time coach of the year, Stefanski, in there as well, but there's so many issues with that roster. They got a Deshaun Watson looming coming back in 4 to 6 weeks. They're saying there's a lot happening there, so I feel like they gave him some grace because he didn't want Deshaun Watson. But we'll have to see, man. I really don't know. Those would be three though that if I had to bet money on it, those three are at risk, absolutely, especially with Mike McDaniel's seat being the hottest.
Yeah, I think Mike McDaniel's seat is probably very, very hot right now. Those two comments feel to me very much like this is the icing on top of a very, very shitty cake. It's not that those problems can't happen. It's as a quarterback, I think it's a bad look for Tua, and I think it's a bad look for the entire Dolphins organization when you have your quarterback on the podium post game, right? We didn't even wait till Monday for this, right? This is post game. We're talking about the in-house issues and the lack of discipline and the lack of accountability and the lack of leadership. And it's a whole lot of finger pointing going on over there. And nobody's taking accountability for it, right? Like, it's one thing for Tua to be like, hey, we lack leadership. Well, dude, are you not making the most money on the team? Part of this is on you.
And he threw 3 picks.
So, it's not all Mike McDaniel, but I think it seems to me whatever he's doing in Miami isn't working, right? I don't know if it's maybe if this is Mike McDaniel is just another Josh McDaniels, right? Where really, really gifted offensive coordinator has no business being a head coach. We won't know until he gets several more chances to mess it up like Josh McDaniels did. But I think Mike McDaniels is absolutely on the hot seat. Another person that I think is on the hot seat, I don't think Pete is. I think Raiders fans want him to be on the hot seat. I don't think he is. I think, if anything, they regret signing Geno because Geno has looked awful in a Raiders uniform. He had like 1 to 2 weeks where he looked okay. He looked viable, but they do not have a quarterback on that team. Like, there's not one on the roster. They've got to figure that out. So I think they'll be a lot more patient with Pete. Another coach that I think you mentioned him, hey, Kevin Stefanski, I think you can say whatever you want to say about the Browns organization, right? Say whatever you want to say about that situation. I think he's been given more than enough time to get it figured out. And the fact that they continue to mess up at the quarterback position, they cannot get it right no matter what they do. Like, at some point, whether it's fair or correct, Kevin Stefanski is going to be the fall guy for this. He is going to be the fall guy for this. And I think that Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. Absolutely. But I also think this is one of those things, right, where the message is tired in Cleveland. He has to, like, it's time for a new voice. What he's doing no longer works. And it just feels like those people up there are drowning him out. And maybe you look at the front office, maybe you look at Andrew Berry and you say, hey, is Andrew Berry the right guy to be putting together that team? And it's kind of hard to say definitively one way or the other, yes or no, on Andrew Berry, because you look at the overall talent of how that roster is constructed. It's a very good roster on paper, but for some reason, when it comes to getting these guys on the grass, they can't seem to get it taken care of. The Deshaun Watson thing is a massive fumble. The way that Baker is playing now versus the way that he was playing in Cleveland, that's a massive fumble. Odell leaves there and immediately goes and wins the Super Bowl. That's a massive fumble. This Dylan Gabriel thing, come on, dude. You saw the start. It didn't look that good. He looked like a lost puppy out there. He didn't know what he was doing. That doesn't look like it's going to work. And I get it. It's one game, right? So everybody's telling me, oh, hold your horses. I know you guys just want Shador out there. You dang right I want Shador out there, because I'm pretty sure he would have hit at least 60% of the throws that Gabriel missed. He would have hit them and gave them a chance in that game. So I just This is a franchise that's just marred with being awful. They could need a coaching change. Sean McDermott is another person I think is on the hot seat. And I know you could look at me and be like, bro, you're crazy. Sean McDermott.
Yeah, you're crazy.
But how many more Superman MVP seasons can you waste of Josh Allen before you're being held accountable for it? At some point, it has to be on the coach. It has to be on the coach because the Bills should be this should be Patriots Colts all day over again, right? Manning and it should be Manning and Brady all over again. But it's not. It's not. For some reason, they just can't. They can't get over the hump. No matter.
I mean, it really is because Tom Brady Manning only won one Super Bowl there, right? So,
but they can't even get to a Super Bowl,
right? And it took Peyton a while to get to one as well. So I get what you're saying, though. I mean, I think it's a fair perspective. I just know he would have a job as soon as the ink cleared from him getting fired. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And again, a lot of times when I'm talking about people that are on a hot seat, it's not necessarily because I think they're doing a terrible job, but I think you have to look at the totality of the picture and how long they've been there. And, we've seen quote unquote winning coaches get fired before because it's like you don't get paid to be above 500. You get paid to win a championship. That's the whole point of the thing.
Depending on the franchise.
Right. Depending on the franchise. Right. But you would think the name of the game, especially when you have, I'm going to say it, when you have it, I think we can call him a generational quarterback like Josh Allen. Like you're wasting him. You're absolutely wasting him. And the fact that he has to put on a cape so many times, he doesn't have many more of these seasons left in him. It's just physically impossible. The body is going to start fighting back against him. So I think Sean McDermott is definitely on the hot seat. Aaron Glenn is another person that I think is on the hot seat as well. And I hate to say that because I love Aaron Glenn, but I don't trust Woody Johnson as an owner. I don't believe in that front office at all. And their roster constructed on paper looks decent. They still need to figure out the quarterback because it doesn't look like they have one at all. But I don't know if Aaron Glenn's going to be given the opportunity to see this project through. I'm pretty sure when they hired him, they told him like, "Hey, we're going to stick with you. We're going to do." But as the season weighs on and these losses continue to pile up, right? Like people get in their feelings. Woody Johnson is definitely an emotional owner. He gets in his feelings. Would not be surprised if you saw Aaron Glenn get dismissed from there. And then I think the last one that I want to is Cardinals head coach Gannon. I think he's absolutely on the hot seat in a division where Kyle Shanahan has a team that is constructed entirely out of paper mache and duct tape, but is still leading the division, still playing competitively against some of the best talent in the league, right? Despite who he has under center, despite pulling fans out of the stand and dressing them on Sundays, like he has the 49ers competing consistently. The Seahawks look like they're figuring it out under Mike McDaniel with Sam Darnold as their quarterback, right? Like they're humming this year. The Rams continue to be the Rams with Sean McVay, right? Like this is a team that everybody sees the talent, everybody sees the potential, but for some reason they can't make it all click at the same time. But they're still out here winning games and competing in playoffs. Here we are again. Jonathan Gannon, what is this, year 3 with him? Year 3 with him? Kyler Murray, hey, new Battlefield just dropped. Now he's injured. He can't play. Call of Duty's coming out right after the fact. Like, y'all might want to wrap it up because it's going to be Jacoby Brissett from here on. But the offense looks inept. And you can say, oh, well, it's because they're missing James Conner. They're missing, like, again, I'll point to your own division. Look at the San Francisco 49ers, bro.
Like, you can't compare a Kyle Shanahan realistically to a Gannon. I get it being in division. And I think this goes to like a larger point that you didn't even think to talk about, but like if you look at some of the franchises who historically are having these problems where they just can't get it figured out, the Cardinals, the Bengals, the Browns, right, the Dolphins for a while, how their ownership approaches the game is part of the reason they have the environment they do, right? Like literally the Bengals, the Cardinals, and the Browns were 2 of the 3 franchise or were some of the franchises that are towards the bottom of that player survey, right? Arizona was the bottom on everything, how they treat family. making players pay for food, right? Like the Bengals, they got to walk under a bypass or a bridge to go to practice. That's not even their facility. Like they built a bubble. Like how some of those owners invest in the team, your product on the field is going to show up that way if you're not really investing, right? You look at the owner, again, I'm biased, right? Like the Walton Penner group, ownership group, they saw our fields after they bought the team. There was one game left. They spent $360,000 to replace the field for the last game of the season, their first year of ownership. As they were talking to the players, they said, "Hey, this doesn't look right." Blah blah blah. They asked the players about it, and they didn't even have. They invested in the team, right? You look at like a Stan Kroenke. He doesn't do it with the Nuggets, but he does do it with the Rams, right? He invests in the Rams, etc. He invests in that franchise, and they're always competing. They have a great coach. I think that has to be part of the conversation, but it's kind of tough when you're saying like you have to look at accountability for you as an owner with the Eagle, like a Woody Johnson, same thing, right? You got to look at accountability of ownership and what kind of environment they're creating, and if they're giving their coach the leeway and their GM the leeway and the tools they need to be successful. And I feel like we're talking about the same franchises, and like that's a big portion of the ownership isn't setting them up for a successful environment. But that doesn't mean they won't fire a coach and blame it on a coach. But
I mean, listen, players get fired all the time, right? We were just talking about the quarterbacks that, hey, they were not put in successful environments, and then now we're seeing them in successful environments, and you see the difference that it makes. It's not always fair. Sometimes it's just the nature of the business, right? I can't sit here and tell you with a straight face that I think Jonathan Gannon is a bad coach, but it's hard week in and week out, year after year, right? You look at who you are competing against in that division, and you have now for the last 3 years been at the bottom of that division. For whatever reason, you can blame it on injuries, you can blame it on whatever, but like you continuously are at the bottom of that division. You are not competitive no matter what's going on. Like, again, I will reiterate, I'm not saying it's fair. I'm saying this is the nature of the beast. Sometimes you get judged based off of your competition, and it has nothing to do with the job that you're doing or the obstacles and stuff that you're facing, but they're looking at your neighbor and they're saying, damn, how come they can get their grass to grow, but you over here stuck with the weeds in the dirt?
Right.
So anyway, I say all that to say I think Black Monday is going to be very, very dark this year, unless some of these teams change their fortune. We could be seeing, I think potentially we could see all the way up to about 8 coaches. 8 coaches get replaced this season. So, but dude, I want to talk about Sunday a little bit because there was a lot of tight games. Not really any blowouts this week. A lot of tight competitive games. Dude, who would have thought coming into this season that the Pittsburgh Steelers would be number 1 in the AFC North? Like, not me, but they're rolling, they're steady. There's one thing that we know about Mike Tomlin, right? That he's going to find a way to get them to a positive record. But they look competitive, and Mike, is it the Steelers are halfway decent, or is that division just that much in shambles?
I think it's a bit of both, right? We saw Aaron Rodgers tear his Achilles with the Jets, et cetera, came back. But you look at what he looked like towards the tail end of last year, and he looked like closer to normal Aaron Rodgers. And again, 70-80% of Aaron Rodgers' prime is better than most quarterbacks could ever hope to be, right? So, like, getting him in there with a Mike Tomlin, who is a culture guy, is a player coach, et cetera, gets that foundation, right? Their defense is always going to be the defense. They're going to always make some plays. Like from the 20 to the 20, you might be able to move around, but they really hunker down and make plays when it counts. With Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, et cetera, and the trades that they made, right? Like Jalen Ramsey looking like an absolute steal there as well. So I think it's a combination of investing in some of the guys as well as capitalizing on the division's misfortunes. Like the Ravens right now, the only reason I didn't put Harbaugh on the hot seat potentially for me is because the amount of like starters they have out. Like you can't, like, I mean, and we're not talking, again, you can compare it to the Niners, et cetera, but the difference is the Niners have not had a Lamar Jackson, right? The Niners haven't had a Kyle Hamilton for someone on that stature for a long time. Like they're missing like Roquan Smith, they were missing for a while. Like they're missing like guys that are perennial all pros and maybe potential Hall of Famers. Obviously, Lamar's going to obviously be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but like they're missing guys, and that's a team that hasn't been able to win. And then obviously we talked about the Browns, and then the Bengals without Joe Burrow. You couldn't expect anything. So again, I think that's a bit of a balance of he has that team competing. They're going to score 25 points. They're going to hold you below, 17 to 20 points is what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to run the ball out. They're not going to ask Aaron Rodgers to win them games. They're going to ask him to get the ball to the playmakers. And DK Metcalf looks like a great investment for them so far. So I think it's a kind of a strategic move in the sense of they invested at the right time, that the division seemed to be on a decline a little bit, right? Especially with some of the injuries. And even with the Bengals, if Joe Burrow was there, yes, they would have won more games. But at the same time, like that defense has been at an epic collapse. Trey Hendrickson he's been hurt. There was just problems that you knew were coming, but how they decided to spend, hundreds of millions of dollars in the offseason on two receivers as opposed to like taking the Bill standpoint of like, hey, we got to eat some of this, let some of these guys go and invest in our defense a little bit more. So again, I do think the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, I'm a big Mike Tomlin believer. People want him out all the time. Like they're like, well, 9-7 or 9-10 or whatever it is. But I'm like, brother, like there's a lot of franchises that would happily switch Mike Tomlin with you and have a something to build on. So they're poised. Again, this was a team that I predicted to make the playoffs. I didn't predict them to win the division. That was the Ravens. But this is a team that absolutely looks like they're going to run away with this division unless the Ravens can figure out how to turn it around.
Let me ask you this: Do you think it's possible, realistically? Say Lamar comes back next game. Is it possible for the Ravens to still take this division, or is it too far gone?
I don't think it's possible for the Ravens to make the division. I think it's possible for them to make the playoffs because what we started to show off with some of the parity around the AFC, right? And kind of some of the remaining schedule. I don't know. Again, anything's possible, but the Steelers would have to go on a pretty. I'm like pulling up their schedule now.
Because I don't think they've played the Ravens at all, right? They still have to play both games against the Ravens.
Yeah, they do. They have the Bengals on Thursday. They have the Packers, the Colts. Then they play the Chargers. Like, the Steelers do have a bit of a daunting schedule. They play the Ravens last. They play the Ravens twice in the last 5 games. So I mean, there's potential for that. But I just think with the injuries that the Ravens have had and some of the people that are going to be out, unless they get those guys back at a good time. I mean, they have the Bears this week, and the Bears don't look like slouches. But then they have the Dolphins, then they have the Vikings, and they have the Browns and the Jets. I mean, and then they have the Bengals, right? So that's a stretch that the Ravens could go potentially 4-2 in that stretch. 4-2 would put them at a 5-7 record, right? Not necessarily a winning record, but that's a team that you could imagine in the next 6 games they could get to 500 for sure.
Well, I hate to say it, bro, but it looks like them boys are back again. And I think you know exactly who I'm talking about, Mike. Your favorite team in the entire world, the Kansas City Chiefs. We thought that they were dead. But they showed out on Sunday. Patrick Mahomes going absolutely nuclear on this Detroit defense to the point where some extracurricular activities happening after the game, right? Some just unnecessary garbage BS. And I think it's hilarious to me that you can watch the clip that the entirety of America saw that incited that post-game shuffle and think that you're going to have any success appealing that the league. But he's filed an appeal, so here we are. But, bro, Kansas City looks like they're rounding back into form, right? The offense looks like they're moving. The defense is now humming, and they're getting Rashee Rice back next week, who we know is going to be pivotal to getting that offense rolling. And they, like I said, they've made do with Xavier Worthy. They've made do with Juju Smith-Schuster. Travis Kelce has shown up, if and when he's needed. Oh, I forgot. Hollywood Brown got some action, right? So, as long as Pat Mahomes is under center and Andy Reid is on the sidelines, you have to believe that this team is going to continuously be in the mix. And again, the AFC West isn't so far gone that they can't come back and try to snatch that back. So this is another team. I think you cannot leave the door open. And the league has just not done a good enough job of closing that door firmly in their face yet.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think that this Lions game was a must win for them, right? If they didn't win that game, it would have been 2-4. Then we were really talking about a conversation, even with Rashee Rice coming back, like they might be out of that playoff grasp. But the dominance that they showed against the Lions, because again, it was a 13-point game, but that game felt way worse than that if you actually watched the game. They were really dominating defensively, like their defense has been rounding into form, and that's something that's been an issue for them this year. Like they gave up 31 to the Jags. Actually, I guess the defense hasn't been an issue this year as far as takeaways and some of these things, but like their defense didn't look as good when their offense was struggling. Maybe it was just because they were tired. But coming off that Jaguars game, I was wondering how they would show up, and they showed up like a champion would. Now, I don't think they're going to win the AFC West, right? I do believe it's going to be either Denver or the Chargers. But I do believe that this is a team that you, like you said, man, like leaving the door open for this team to come back and compete. They know how to play when it matters. Now, what they did do is the week 17 for them has been like a bye, right? The past few years, like they end the season with the Chargers, the Titans, and the Raiders, and they're going to really need those 3 games to be in playoff position to have a chance at winning the division. So I think they absolutely will be competing, but they're not going to be able to be so far ahead in the division that they could set all their starters at the end of end of it, still have a bye, etc. They're absolutely not going to be in that position, and we'll see how they bounce back from that. But I don't know, man. Like I just thought they were going to be dead, man. I was really counting on the Lions. I was really hoping, right? I was really counting on the Lions, like, hey, man, put these boys down. And then that would have gave them they would have probably beat the Raiders next week, but then they got the Commanders, the Bills, and the Colts after that, right? And the Cowboys. And they've been kind of competitive. So having Rashee Rice come back, man, I think this is the perfect time for him to come back. We saw what the Commanders looked like yesterday. They're a little bit vulnerable in the secondary, it seems. So I think having Rashee Rice come back, Xavier Worthy, and Travis Kelce after that album drop, after that Taylor Swift album drop, he started balling again. So maybe that was the difference in their season.
Well, I think, I think when your fiance puts your manhood on wax and lets the whole world know what you're working with, I think you got to get out on the field and kind of show it. So kudos to him. I want to talk about my favorite game of the day yesterday, which was Tampa Bay, San Francisco. 2 reasons why it was my favorite game of the day. 1, because 49ers lost. And 2, because, bro, I love watching Baker Mayfield play football. He's just an absolute dog. And I'm so glad that he's getting MVP consideration because he has looked every bit of an MVP. And there's just no quit in this guy at all. I watched him convert a 3rd and 15, scrambling, breaking tackles, running, extending to grab the first down and tuck the game away. Like, he has, in my opinion, man, he has the tenacity of Tim Tebow, right? Where there's nobody on the field that wants to win more than Tim Tebow. Back when Tim was, in college, back when he played for the Broncos, right? He just had a will to win. But unlike Tim Tebow, he can actually play quarterback and throw the ball. And he's got some weapons, man. He's got a great supporting cast around him too, right? Now it looks like Emeka Egbuka is going to miss some time with the injury, but he's been phenomenal in his rookie season. I think he's been everything that they hoped he would be, and probably some more. Getting Chris Godwin back, Mike Evans back into the fold, like Tampa looks like a real team. And this is, by the way, this is minus Liam Cohen, right? There was potentially going to be a drop off with Liam Cohen leaving them at the 11th hour after accepting a contract extension and then reneging on that extension to go be a head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, dude, he's balling. And San Francisco, right? Like I said at the top, Kyle Shanahan continues what he's doing with that team. Like, he seriously should be up for Coach of the Year contention for the coaching job that he's doing. And bias aside, like, I'm serious. This team is held together with duct tape. It is Mac Jones being duct taped up together with a quasi-healthy CMC, and then pick your poison. They lost Fred Warner for the season on Saturday. Not Saturday, on Sunday. Which, like I said, as a Rams fan, anything that makes the 49ers weaker, I get happier about. But just as a fan of football, I hate to see that Fred Warner's out for the season, especially because I really love Fred Warner. I think he is the best inside linebacker in football, and he's been the standard for a long time. I think we had the best inside linebackers in the NFC West for the longest time. Like we went from Bobby Wagner to Fred Warner, like
Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw for a while.
Yeah, and Dre Greenlaw for a while. Like, yeah, man, it's again it was going to be tough, but I definitely think that it was a lot tougher than Tampa Bay anticipated. This San Francisco team, like anybody who's overlooking San Francisco and think that this team is dead in the water because you're looking at the injury report and stuff like that, you got another thing coming, man. Like this team doesn't have any quit in them at all.
Yeah, no, like Baker is really, in my opinion, the MVP favorite this year. Like he has to be. I don't know what Vegas's odds are and all that crap, but I do know, like, if you're watching games and you're watching how players are playing and what they do to their team, like they lost to Emeka Egbuka early in that game with a hamstring, right? Mike Johnson was out, right? Chris Godwin's been out. Their leading receiver was Cameron Johnson, right? And most people are like, "Who's Cameron Johnson?" This is a second-year player out of Boston College, and they had him in position to make plays. But you mentioned something with their coordinator before, and this is my opinion, right? Like always, good coordinators are gonna be leaving to go get head coaching opportunities, offensive assistants, promoted offensive coaches, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing that you always see with these programs, right, with these ball clubs, is the stability at the head coaching position, right? So if you're a good franchise, you're going to lose some coordinators. People can say what they want to about the Eagles. The Eagles have lost 2 games. They looked a little bit rough, but at the same time, they're still leading the NFC East, right? 5-2 or 4-2, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, they're 4-2, leading that division still, and they're going on a bye soon, so they'll be able to kind of recuperate and get some of that stuff done with the first-year offensive play caller. But saying that to say that's a team that, even though they're going through their slump, they're not looking pretty. They look like they're gonna make the playoffs, right? You say that to say the Bucks with their head coach, right? They like Bruce Arians brought in a good staff, right? He brought in the staff. He retired, hand the reins over, right? And they've been absolute. Todd Bowles has been an absolute rock steady in that position as a head coach. So yes, they lost some coordinators, et cetera. He's had to make some tough decisions and fire a few coordinators actually. But saying that to say, like, he has the pulse of that team. And if you have a strong head coach like that, you have a franchise quarterback, you have a general manager that's in alignment, you have some vets, like they have a Levante David, who is like still top 5 in tackles in the NFL, still top 5 in tackles in the NFL in his 13th year in the league.
Yeah.
They have these vets. They got a Vita Vea, right? Like they got these guys, and that just enhances what they have, and he's letting them play. And that's a coach who did win a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator with that same team. So he knows what a winning program looks like. And having Baker as a quarterback was a steal for one, because I don't know how the Browns let him out the building after he took them to the playoffs. So like, you know what? Baker took us to the playoffs. Let's see if somebody else can do the same thing, right? And it didn't work out. It hasn't worked out since. So having Baker and the fact that they were even able to get a Baker on that 1-year prove-it deal and pay him when they paid him, because he's only making like $30-something million a year.
Yeah, he's not making a lot.
50. We know he'll re-up and get that bag, but like absolutely balling out, man. And you think about that, they're down their top 3 weapons, right? They've been down Chris Godwin the whole year. Mike Evans has been out. Emeka Egbuka got hurt, and they still found a way to pull away in that game. Their defense has been their defense, in my opinion, has been the unsung heroes of that team this year, aside from Baker, because they've given up they've been giving up points. I'm not saying they've been holding teams to 11 points or something like that, but they make plays at crucial times and give Baker opportunity to go on a game-winning drive or to put the game away. And that's all you want. That's all you're asking for, right, as a team. So I love what they're doing. I love what they're putting together. That's a team that if I had to bet is going to be has the potential to be the number 1 seed, right, in the NFC. I think they're going to run away with this division. The Falcons look very competitive now, but I do believe that the Bucks are making their claim that they have the MVP and that they're going to be the number 1 seed in the playoffs for the NFC. And if they keep rolling how they're rolling, man, it's going to be tough to argue with that.
But man, only a few more games that I wanted to roll through from this previous week. But I'd be remiss if we didn't talk Thursday night football, Giants, Eagles. Let's talk about Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterboo. Like, I don't know what you want to call them, bro. Like the CTE twins or what, but like these guys are not going to remember their career if they keep playing the way that they're playing. It makes for entertaining television. It's super fun to watch. I saw something online like Cam Scatterboo prior to lacing up the cleats Thursday night was chilling on NBA 2K on free court mode, offering free smoke to anybody who would come and take it. Like there was actual like video evidence and proof of Cam Scatterbo like online a couple hours before game time playing NBA 2K. And then he laced up and got busy on the field. Like, bro, will Jackson Dart work for the Giants long term? That remains to be seen, but he definitely provides an energy, provides a spark, and the combination of him and Cam Scatterbo, like they are the engine that makes that offense go. And this is them out like sans Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is a luxury item for them, right? But you got a quarterback who's not afraid to stick his nose in there, which, hey, if you're the front office, if you're the coaching staff, right, you're wincing every time you see him, take those hits, and he's diving head first at people and he's lunging. Same way with Cam Scatterbo, right? Like he's not avoiding contact. They're running into the danger and they're bringing the hits to the defense. But God, it's so fun to watch. Meanwhile, on the other end, like you said, the Eagles haven't looked like the world beaters they were last year. Saquon is having an off year. The AJ Brown is MIA. Devontae Smith is about the only consistent contributing member, but even then, like Jalen Hurts did not look comfortable at all that game. That New York Giants defensive front was getting after him. He missed AJ Brown on a wide open. He got behind the safeties, missed him by about 10, 15 yards, bro. Like this team does not look right. And I know we talked in the offseason, like, hey, this is going to be the easy pick for the NFC. Like the Eagles look like they're going to run it back, but something looks fundamentally broken with them right now. The defense doesn't look as potent as it did last year when it comes to the secondary. And the offense just all seems to be playing on different sheets of music right now.
Yeah, I think two things, like going back and touching on the Giants, man, like Cam Scatterbo looks like he, I got to see him in the Big 12 championship game against Arizona State last year. No, he was on Arizona State against Iowa State. They pulled him out in the third quarter, but he had like 3 touchdowns, 170-something yards. He was going crazy. Pulled him out. He looked like an absolute dog. I was surprised he dropped that far in the draft with how he is, because there's players that just play. And Jackson Dart has looked like he's brought a new found energy to that roster, right? Under Russell, again, I get why Dayball had Russ out there in the beginning, right? You said I have this unproven rookie. I'm on a contract year where I know I can lose this job if I don't have some progress. So they wanted him to learn a little bit. But Jackson Dart coming in the game earlier this season was a big turnaround for them. And I don't think it's good that Malik Neighbors is out, but I do think that that's going to help out Jackson Dart's progression, because he's 1, 2, 3 taken off or whatever right now, as opposed to try to force feed it to Malik Neighbors. So I think, I think not having Malik Neighbors isn't going to be good for him long term, but I think in the interim right now, it's going to help him go through his progressions, trust the offense, get the ball out. And Cam Scatterbo is an absolute assassin pass blocking, man. The thing that isn't talked about nearly enough is his pass blocking, right? As a 5'10" running back, right? Like he is absolutely destroying linebackers when they're coming in to try to sack a quarterback. With Russ, he was doing that. And there's no way he's not going to have CTE. Now, saying that to say the Eagles, man, I think this is a part of their transition, right? A Vic Fangio defense. He has, it's going to be a good defense, et cetera, but they lost a lot of pieces. They lost a ton of pieces, right? And I think that in addition to losing their offensive play caller, Kellen Moore last year after they won the Super Bowl to the Saints, and having a first-time play caller, you're going to have some ups and downs, and I think it's just part of this season. I don't think they're going to be in danger of, missing the playoffs by any stretch. I think this is a team that'll work it out, but they have to get back to what their strength is, and their offense runs off of Saquon Barkley. You cannot have a Saquon Barkley go 2,000 yards, who had 6 carries against the Broncos, had 54 yards against the Giants. Now, again, those are 2 of the better defensive lines or front sevens in the NFL. I'm not saying it's not, but the way to slow down a pass rusher is run at him, right? and they have not been maximizing Saquon at all this year. I don't think he has a 100-yard game this year.
No, I don't think so.
I'm trying to double check right now before I make a false
statement. You might be right with that.
Yeah. I'm looking right now. Like Saquon has 323 yards. He's averaging 3.4 yards a carry. He doesn't have a 100-yard game, right? So you have to be able to get him back to where he was. Not even where he was last year, but I mean, he's not even on pace to do half the production he had last year. After 6 weeks, he's averaging 50 yards a game. And you can't do that with somebody who was in the MVP conversation last year, because literally their entire offense is built off of that, right? Like if teams have no fear of Saquon, which you should absolutely have fear of Saquon, then you're not going to allow Devontae Smith to get open and make the plays he can make. Jalen Hurts isn't going to be able to scramble like he can do, or get the ball to AJ Brown, get the ball to their tight end Zach Ertz, whatever. So, or not Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is with the
Commanders now.
But he's not going to be able to get the ball to the playmakers they have. So I think they need to figure out something very quickly on how to get Saquon going again. They have the line they still have, right? The line that's still, I mean, if you look at the resume, they haven't been playing that well this year. I think part of that is play calling, but they have these guys that are like, they have Lane Johnson, like Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, right? They have these guys on that team that won them a Super Bowl last year, minus Mekhi Becton. And I don't believe Mekhi Becton was such a big piece of their offense if the other four guys
God, imagine that Mekhi Becton is the linchpin.
Was the linchpin, right? But maybe we're wrong. So I think once they get back to running the ball, how we know they can, how they've proven they can the entire time Nick Sirianni's been there, they'll be in better position to win games. But they got to get that figured out. And again, it's part of the course. You got a new coordinator, first-time play caller, etc. You expect some up and downs, but I would absolutely expect, Saquon to not average a career low, 3.4 yards a game to continue the rest of the season if this team's going to, be in position to win games.
All right, man. Well, let's talk about our last two games from the week. Monday Night Football. Listen, NFL, I have but one request. Stop giving me a doubleheader on Monday. I don't want a doubleheader. I want one game that I can focus on and enjoy. Like, I'm tired of the doubleheader. Just move. No more doubleheaders. But like I said, all that being said, last night didn't go probably how anybody thought it was going to go. Atlanta showed up and showed out. The defense had Josh Allen in a blender, and Bijan Robinson was on one. It's whatever Saquon was on last year. I'm pretty sure Bijan went and space jammed him and got all of his powers, because that's what it looked like last night. The Buffalo defense had no answers for him at all last night. And Michael Penix continues to, develop and show why he was worth a first-round draft pick as high as he was within the top 10. And then he continues to prove, Raheem Morris and that coaching staff right for taking him, and then for also continuing to play him while they're paying Kirk Cousins the outrageous sum of money that they're paying him, right? Like the most expensive backup in the NFL right now. But again, despite Buffalo's best efforts, right, they finally got James Cook rolling in the second half. Josh Allen tried to, put on the cape. He just wasn't successful. Like, the defense was swarming and they played physical. This is probably the most physical that I've seen Atlanta play in years. And I was really, really happy to see it. I don't think, if we're even 2 weeks ago, man, I don't think that we're looking at this game and saying, hey, Buffalo is going to lose by 10 points to Atlanta, especially a team that gave up 30 to the Panthers.
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% right. The thing that had me a little bit weary for the Bills going into this game is their run defense. Their run defense has been their Achilles heel this year. Bijan Robinson has been the best running back in the NFL this year. So usually those two things don't go well together. A bad run defense against a phenomenal running back. Unless you're the phenomenal running back, that's the only time it goes well. So I kind of feel like they would have some struggles. Now, I didn't expect, Josh Allen to have 2 interceptions and to fumble the ball twice, right? Like the turnovers that the Falcons were causing were the reason that they won that game. And you think about that, they only lost by 10. They had 3 fumbles total, right? Oh no, they had 2 fumbles by Josh Allen, One of them was recovered by the Falcons. One of them was covered by Elijah Moore, and they had 2 interceptions, and he got sacked 4 times. So he gave the ball away 3 times, right? Put the ball in danger 4 times, was sacked another 4 times, and they only lost by 10. So I do think, again, while the Bills, Sean McDermott is a defensive coach, right? He's kind of been able to do that. I can see that run defense getting fixed, a few adjustments, especially when they get a couple guys back. But the Falcons did take advantage of the opportunity, right? The Falcons were coming off of a bye. They had an early bye. They're 3-2 right now, and they're going to be in the position to be competing in that division. And again, the NFC South is a division now, right? Where the Panthers are looking a little bit dangerous. Like Bryce Young's looking like a great point guard, like we thought he would be. The Falcons are looking a little bit dangerous, right? So it's kind of a fun division to watch. The Saints even have been competitive at random times.
They've been feisty.
They've been competitive and feisty at some time. So again, the Bucs are the class of that division, in my opinion. But I'm very interested to see what happens the rest of the year.
All right, and then the final game of the week, final game of the night, right? Chicago, Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniel versus Caleb Williams, number 1 versus number 2. It's an interesting game, man. A lot of back and forth going on, and I don't know what is happening with the Commanders this year. This does not look remotely like the same team. And you can point to the thing and say, well, they don't have Terry, right? Like they don't have Terry. I think Austin Eckler is hurt, is he not?
Mm-hmm.
I think you could point to those 2 things. And don't get me wrong, like those are definitely affecting them, but they just don't. I don't know, man. I can't put my finger on it. This does not look like the same team from last year. It looks like they're taking a step backwards. Meanwhile, Chicago is continuing to fight and fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. And I don't know if they're good, but they're much more competitive. And I think Ben Johnson, his message is finally landing with that locker room, and they are competing. I still think that Chicago ends up probably missing the playoffs this year, but it's good. They're going to miss it by the smallest of margins. But this was a game that, had you played this game a year ago, Chicago would have lost this game.
By a lot, yeah. They actually did lose this game last year, right? They played each other last year, and that Tyreek Stevens situation happened.
Oh my God, yeah, that's right. This was the play that they took a nap.
And it was a close game last year. I just think that these this was a phenomenal game. Jaden Daniels played very well. He had 3 touchdowns and interception. He was sacked 3 times, but it only gave up 6 yards. And Caleb did a phenomenal job of managing the offense, right? He didn't go out and make a ton of crazy plays necessarily, but he did rely on DeAndre Swift a lot. He got the ball out to him. DeAndre Swift led them in receiving and rushing last night, which is better than like a Caleb Williams leading you in rushing or something like that. That happened a few times last year. So I think he's been doing a better job. Ben Johnson is getting him to trust his playmakers around him, getting the ball out a little bit quicker because he was holding the ball kind of long. In their defense, man, made some timely plays, some timely stops. And it looks like realistically that DeAndre Swift, that was one of the bigger moves but one of the bigger things that people that improved under Ben Johnson was DeAndre Swift, who's, been a baller since he's been in the league. But like, I feel like Ben Johnson's using him very similarly to how he was using Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, he's not a Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's putting him in some similar positions. And he's definitely capitalizing on that, right? So, again, the Bears pulled off a gritty win. I think they have the makings of some stuff, and they're building that foundation like we talked about, a culture that's going to be sustainable, right? They got a DJ Moore, Luther Burden was a steal in the draft, right? DeAndre Swift. Their defense is starting to round out together a little bit more. Rome Odunze, right? He hasn't had the year that I predicted he would have, right? It hasn't been a terrible year, but he hasn't had the year I thought he – the explosion that we maybe thought he would have been having. He's definitely on track to have 1,000 yards this season, right around 1,000 yards. But, with him being really him and DJ Moore, you thought he would take a step up. But Caleb Williams is really limiting his turnovers like he was doing in college. He hasn't been making all the plays that he was making in college, but he has been trusting his playmakers. And I think if that's all that Ben Johnson could get him to do, as their team gets a little bit older, right, because they have a lot of young guys, they're going to be in real good positions to compete and win. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if they made a wild card. I wouldn't be surprised if they missed the playoffs. This is a team I predicted to make a wild card, and I'm going to stick to that. But I
Sure.
wouldn't be surprised if, they're just right on that cusp where they make the wild card, they miss it by a game or two. We're just going to have to see how they close out when the weather starts changing.
I just think that the division, like the NFC conference, is just going to be too much. Like, I don't think that they're going to win that division. I think that division is going to lie, probably with Green Bay, but who knows? Detroit or Minnesota could take it as well. Like, it's not as clear cut as I thought it was going to be this year. And then I just think the rest of the NFC is just going to be too competitive for them to, to really do anything with it. So, how about Jake Moody for the win, right? After having just a disastrous start to his career at San Francisco and being one of the most unreliable kickers in the NFL, comes in freshly signed and sealed it, right? Like, what a turnaround story for him. Now, again, one game, one kick, small sample size. Let's see if it continues to trend upward from here. But that's much more what we're accustomed to seeing from Jake Moody. For those of us that are Michigan fans, myself, he was one of the most consistent kickers in college. So when he got to San Francisco and started missing everything, I don't know what it was. Obviously, I was happy to see it as a Rams fan, but sad to see it as a Michigan fan. So good on him, man. What a great story for him to at least for the time being, right? Like, we'll see. We'll see what it is for the rest of the season. But man, week 6, it's a wrap. Where more players are going down. Like we talked about at the top, man, just so much parity this year. It's a frustrating year for those people that are used to just riding on Easy Street, right? If you're used to just being one of those fans that just gets to smile and poke fun at everybody for the rest of the, for the entire season because your team just rides high all the time. Kansas City, I'm looking at you. Yeah, you got to sweat it out a little bit with the rest of us. You got to grind it out and, take some years off of your life. It's going to cost you something to be a fan this year.
Yeah, and to that point, man, I was just looking at it. There's only 4 teams in the NFC with a losing record right now that are below 500. And all the other 12 teams are 500 and above compared to the AFC, which is historically like the stronger conference, has 8 teams that are worse than 500, right? So the NFC has been very competitive. I think they invested a lot in some of these younger quarterbacks like Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, and I think that's paying off dividends for some of these teams. So it's been very competitive. I would love to see the AFC West not be competitive. I would like the Broncos to just run away with the division. Sure. But we'll see what happens in that situation. But it's been a competitive, man. Like the Broncos and the Chargers are both 4-2. The Chiefs are 3-3. The Raiders we're not worried about, like I told you the whole time. The Colts, the Jags are both like the Colts are 5-1, the Jags are 4-2. The Steelers are running away with that division, and then the Patriots and Bills are both 4-2. One of those looks like they're on the upswing with the Pats, and I think you did a good job of calling them potentially making the playoffs, and I think they're on track to do that. And the Bills look like they got something to figure out, but it's been a good year, man. Unless you're a fan of one of them teams like the Ravens, where you expect to go back to to potentially get over that hump, go to the Super Bowl 1 5, get hit with injuries, man. So it's been a phenomenal year. I was stressing out with the Broncos 13-11. I was like, man, but I do love a good defensive game where we get 9 sacks, but we can't send the Jets to London anymore. That's what I figured out. The Jets do not need to play anywhere international. They need to just stay in MetLife in the continental U.S. And don't send them across the pond anymore, man. Like every game that they played over there has been terrible. -10 passing yards collectively, right? Ooh. It's again, you can't blame them too much. They're going against the best defense in the NFL, but -10 passing yards is absolutely insane when you have a Garrett Wilson on your team. Mason Taylor,
who's now injured, by the way.
Yeah, who's now injured, right? He got strapped up by Pat Surtain, which it happens. But saying all that to say, man, like it's been a phenomenal year, and I do see the Jets again as a team that they're building that foundation like the Lions did. The Lions started off that year, first year under Dan Campbell, like 0-10. You see their defense with the Jets rounding into shape. They'll add some offensive pieces, and that's the team that I think will be competitive in the coming years. But they got to find that guy under center, which I've been a Justin Fields believer for a while. He said, I don't know why he went to Ohio State. Mike, you got to – and I'm just like, hey, man, I think he has something about him, but he's kind of shown what he is, and it's not a starting quarterback.
Yeah, look, and who would have thought, man? Probably you, but not me. Your sack leaders through 6 weeks.
Nick
Nick
Bonito.
Bonito, Byron Young, within half a sack of each other.
Absolutely. I predicted Nick Bonito to lead the league in sacks this year after having 13 and a half last year, and really coming on the second half of the year. I was not expecting him to have 8 sacks in 6 weeks. You know, if he keeps up at this pace, that's 24 sacks. He would be,
Defensive player of the year, easy.
Defensive player of the year, to getting up there with the sack record. So we hope it continues, man.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, I know you hope it continues. I hope it continues for BY and that we're challenging you for that sack record because I want all things to come up Rams. That's just the way it is. But anyway, man, we appreciate all of y'all for rocking out with us for another week right here on In the Pocket Podcast. For the record, In the Pocket Podcast drops every single Wednesday right here on YouTube. So go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and click that little bell button so that way you can get notified anytime we drop new episodes. We drop every single week on Wednesdays, and we cover all 32 NFL teams. Hit us up in the comment section. Let us know some topics. Let us know how you're feeling about your squad through 6 weeks. Looking forward to interacting with some of y'all. More content to come, bro. We'll see y'all next week.